Good day, everyone. Welcome to Real Conservative Headline News. I'm your host, Nathaniel Rajkumar. Starting off locally here in Trinidad and Tobago, Prime Minister Kamala Persad is urging citizens to exercise greater emotional control and personal restraint, warning that dozens of homicides this year could have been completely prevented if interpersonal disputes had not escalated into violence. Remember what PNM used to be blaming the population too? Rowley was telling women to make wiser decisions, choose your men wisely. That was good. It was good. The advice, just like how the advice Kamala is giving his good advice, But it's all about trying to take away from your own, trying to deflect and trying to deny that you are responsible as a government, as a state, to implement effective types of policies and laws that could assist in reducing and deterring crime from being committed. You understand? But now she's doing the same thing as PNM and just blaming the population. In a formal statement issued on Wednesday, the Prime Minister highlighted that while law enforcement has made notable strides against organized gang activity under the state of emergency, preventable conflicts among ordinary citizens remain a major public safety challenge. Oh, Lord. Same thing, Same thing PNM used to be talking. This woman come and copy everything. According to official police statistics cited by the Prime Minister, 82 murders in 2026 were directly linked to non-gang disputes, according to the TTPS people. Specifically, 40 stemming from altercations, 30 attributed to revenge attacks, and 12 resulting from domestic disputes. The 12 disputes, that I could believe, because there were incidents where there's domestic disputes between husband and wife, or family members and stuff like that. Yeah, those, you see the rest of them? Yes, Father. And 12 resulting from domestic disputes. Persad emphasized that these 82 deaths could have been avoided if those involved had chosen physical and emotional restraint over immediate retaliation, pointing out that 371 such conflict-driven murders have been recorded across the country since 2024. However, security analysts and critics urge caution when evaluating these classifications, pointing to systemic limitations within law enforcement performance. And the data coming out from the police service as well, because they're always trying to make some kind of excuse as to why crime continues to escalate. Actual court convictions occur in a tiny fraction of those cases. The vast majority of homicide classifications never undergo independent judicial testing. So how are we to really know for sure that, minus the 12, how are we to know for sure that those other murders weren't gang related? How are we to know for sure? If the police service can't even come up with sufficient evidence a lot of the times to charge these individuals or worse yet, to convict them. The public is essentially asked to accept internal police designations. Whatever they label something as, that's what we are supposed to accept, because we must trust and love the rough men in the police service. Trust and believe it. Yeah. Made shortly after a crime scene is processed as absolute truth. Despite these analytical concerns, government officials maintain that while joint security forces will continue targeting violent criminal networks, community-level conflict resolution and self-restraint remain essential. Now, as I said before, I'm not saying that's not good advice. I'm just saying it's lame excuses that are being made. And we can't say for sure how many of those really were, in fact, just personal disputes and there wasn't any sort of turf war or turf disputes involved gang-related, that it wasn't really gang-related to some extent. Persad reiterated that lasting gains in national security depend as much on civic responsibility as on police operations, calling on the public to adopt a more peaceful approach to to dispute resolution to stem the tide of unnecessary domestic and personal tragedies across Trinidad and Tobago. Once again, good advice, but basically it is just being used the same way that PNM used to be doing it. Don't blame we, the government, we trying our best, Jed. It's really y'all messing up. You remember when Rowley used to be blaming the citizens for everything as well? And his ministers used to be doing the same thing? My response, this woman sounds more like Rowley every day. Every day as the days go by, I only hear Rowley in my head. It's a female version. All of a sudden, personal disputes is the reason why the murder rate remains high. Just a few months ago, they were still talking about the gangs, All of a sudden, now we have gangs under control. It's personal disputes now. What about the TTPS pathetic detection rates? Kamala Prasad-Bissessar and your administration, the detection rate hasn't improved. So how are you so sure that what they're labeling as personal disputes aren't really, in fact, gang-related? How are you so sure with a detection rate that is so pathetic as the one that the TTPS has? Are you sure that some of these so-called personal disputes aren't still gang-related, Kamala? Are you really sure? You trusted a police service that can't solve most crimes. They could probably even barely solve a jigsaw puzzle. But you want the nation to believe that basically half of the murders this year were not gang-related. All right, Kamala. All because you want to say that your precious SOE has successfully controlled gang wars and that keeping people behind bars via PDOs has controlled gang wars or limited and reduced gang wars. Hey boy, I went on to say you gave unrealistic promises during your election campaign. You promised that you had a vision, that you had a plan for crime. Not telling us that the plan was just to impose a continued and a prolonged state of emergency and lock up people without sufficient evidence in order to charge them and prosecute them and convict them. So I said you gave unrealistic promises during your election campaign, and now citizens are being blamed for the government and TTPS failures. That's what is happening. Have you done anything to address gang culture, Kamala? Because that is what you need to do. And the glorification of that evil lifestyle on our airwaves. But remember, while in opposition, she kind of defended that type of Trinidad music. So maybe she doesn't want to be a hypocrite about that too. Because that is indoctrination, people. That's not entertainment. That is indoctrination. Glorification of evil. We'll select a run the tune again, and the songs is all about bloodshed and murder and gang wars. You're fighting against the gangs, but you have the media, the mainstream media, endorsing and promoting and glorifying gang culture. Ridiculous. Have you done anything to renovate and construct new community centers so that various programs can be introduced for our youths? I say that on a regular basis. That's what you need to do. So that all these communities that are totally consumed and controlled by gang culture and the love and the worship of weed, that you can actually start to try to restore some kind of basic, normal, biblical values into the minds and hearts of these individuals. I'm not trying to force religion upon anyone, people. But our countries, our democracy was built upon basic biblical 10 Commandment values. Values that a lot of these ghetto areas no longer really consider. They don't. They love zest and badness and lawlessness and drugs, weed. That is what they love. The children are growing up in homes only seeing parents smoking weed day and night. They had to be inhaling secondhand weed smoke. That is what is happening in our country right now. So what you need to do is get into those communities, and instead of arresting people and locking them up and causing children to end up losing their parents, what you need to do is to introduce or reintroduce programs in those communities, counseling sessions in those communities, where people can go and actually counsel these individuals to get back on the right path. And the youth, instead of being on the streets and smoking weed and joining gangs, they can get involved in positive extracurricular activities via these community centers. And it's not just about the activities, but as I said before, counseling sessions, so that the whole families could understand that this type of culture that you have within your communities is destructive and is causing your youth to die before they can even reach the age of 30. A destructive, evil culture, gang culture. It needs to stop. So that an SOE is not going to change all that, people. An SOE is not going to change all that. And that is the problem. And then, of course, we need to improve the detection rates within the TTPS and stop them from being a lawless law enforcement agency. They break most of the laws that they enforce upon others. And they are incapable of solving most crimes in Trinidad and Tobago. That is our problem. And that is what the Kamla Pasabi Sessa administration refuses to try to resolve.
Weather report for Friday, August 7, 2026, Trinidad and Tobago. The weather forecast for Friday, August 7, 2026 in Trinidad and Tobago predicts a high temperature of 28 degrees Celsius and a low of 25 degrees Celsius, with thunderstorms developing during the day. The official Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Service indicates a hot, sunny and hazy day overall, but with a 50% chance of rain and localized afternoon thundery showers. Humidity stays high at 77% throughout the day. Wind will be blowing from the northeast at 12 miles per hour, but it can gust up to 40 kilometers per hour near heavy downpours. The UV index reaches an extreme level of 10 during midday sun exposure, requiring high protection. A mild to moderate concentration of Saharan dust remains in the atmosphere, so sensitive individuals should take precautions. Sea states are moderate, with open water waves hitting 1.5 meters to 2.0 meters.
Regional news now. Prime Minister Dr. Godwin Friday announced that his administration is pursuing strategic measures, including the potential implementation of a debt swap to maintain fiscal responsibility while keeping St. Vincent and the Grenadines' national debt manageable. Speaking on local radio, Dr. Friday addressed long-standing concerns regarding the country's debt servicing obligations, noting that international funding partners and multilateral agencies have raised alerts about national debt levels since as far back as 2016, a decade. However, economic analysts urge measured scrutiny when evaluating such fiscal policy announcements, pointing out that debt restructuring mechanisms like swaps often carry complex long-term financial commitments that require independent auditing and transparent oversight to prove their effectiveness. Yeah, but somehow or the other, something needs to be done about it.
What we are doing now is as I said earlier too, we have a debt situation now, 113% of GDP, which is what the government debt is. Paying, for debt servicing is 39 cents on the dollar that we earn. I mean, that is too high. We have a situation where the debt to GDP is projected to rise to 124% in another few years if we don't do corrective surgery now. And so we are having now to seek ways in which to swap out some of our more expensive debt to get more better terms, and we are exploring those possibilities vigorously. And not just us, there are other countries in the region doing likewise, and some of them have done already at lower interest rates, swapping out more expensive debt. That is something that we're doing. We're also looking at other development financing institutions. We have joined the Central American Development Bank recently, CAF. We are looking at other institutions that are willing to provide concessional funding for development programs. These are the things we want to do, rather than relying too much on more expensive local loans and bilateral loans, which can be a little bit costlier. And then, of course, our strategy of encouraging the private sector investment. So we have a public-private partnership where it makes sense in certain areas, but also providing a friendly business environment for local businesses and regional businesses and foreign and direct investors to come in and do business in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
International news now. In a major escalation of congressional oversight, Senate investigators have obtained a copy of Dr. Anthony Fauci's pandemic-era government iPhone, as the Senate Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee voted 8-7 to hold the former top health official in contempt of Congress because, yes, he was pardoned by Biden, but so that now he's supposed to answer any questions, and he still is refusing to do so. Why? Why? If you were so effective, if you were abiding by the law while carrying out your duties, why are you trying to hide anything now, Fauci? We know why, and we want justice. But of course, Biden decided to pardon you. Fox News Digital confirmed that the Department of Health and Human Services transferred the device to Senator Ron Johnson's permanent subcommittee on investigations. While panel leadership hopes the device will shed light on federal decision-making during the C-19 pandemic, it remains unconfirmed whether investigators possess the necessary technical access to retrieve and analyze the device's content. What, in this day and age? Miss me with that, man. The acquisition of the phone comes on the heels of HHS turning over more than 1,000 pages of Fauci's personal diary to congressional panels, adding to a growing repository of documents under review. That man was one of the most evil people, including the heads of the WHO, of course, in that era. The panel's contempt resolution follows a fiery hearing where Fauci repeatedly invoked his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. You cannot be incriminated for something that you were already pardoned for, Fauci. Refusing to answer questions regarding pandemic policy and viral origins. When you're pleading, that is because you could be convicted, you could be charged. You can't because you'll be pardoned. So therefore, you don't have that right. That's basically what the lawmakers are saying. You don't have that privilege anymore. You understand? So you're supposed to be just held accountable now. Committee Republicans argue that a preemptive presidential pardon renders his constitutional protections incapable because, of course, as I said before, there's nothing to protect you from anymore because you have been pardoned. You understand? While Fauci's legal team contends the proceeding was designed to entrap him, creating a high-stakes legal clash over congressional subpoena power, I hope that they are successful. And I hope even though he can no longer face jail time, the world can end up finding out how evil this man really was and still is.
Psalm 31, 1-4. In you, Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness. Turn your ear to me. Come quickly to my rescue. Be my rock of refuge, a strong fortress to save me. Since you are my rock and my fortress, for the sake of your name lead and guide me. Keep me free from the trap that is set for me, for you are my refuge.
Lord, I take refuge in you. Be my strong fortress and save me. For your name's sake, lead me and rescue me from every trap.
Into your hands I commit my spirit, Lord. I trust in you. You saw my anguish and set my feet in a spacious place.
Folks, that brings us to the end of today's headline news. Thanks again to everyone who continues to support my content. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay blessed and stay safe most of all. In Jesus' name.